Naturally, as Will's grandmother, I knew Will since the first day he was born, of course. I will never forget that first moment in the hospital, when James, that's Will's father, handed me my grandson for the first time. He wriggled in his blue blanket, already a strong boy. James liked that punk thing in the 1980s and looked a terrible mess to me. He ran 3 pubs in London for those sort of people. I would go over to babysit as often as I could. A child needs someone normal in their life. The magazines that Sharon read were full of paintings. I'm not sure they were very suitable for a young boy to be around, but I don't like to judge. I always thought Will should play outside more. He preferred making up stories, even back then. Will's birth wasn't very easy, but he got here. He was never going to have brothers or sisters after that. There was always music playing when I got to the house. Some awful racket. Not the sort of thing a child should be hearing. I always turned it off. Sharon, Will's mother, broke up with James for 3 years at one point and took Will away to America, where she comes from. They had met through James's work. No wonder, really. James had horror books in the house, and I'm so glad they were kept on a high shelf away from Will. Terrible things. I just don't understand what pleasure there is in that kind of story. I loved Will. I always just wanted him to have the best possible start and to be successful. I suppose I sound awful, saying his parents were doing everything wrong. I remember an evening where Will was quieter than usual. At first I thought he was ill. He had been in a fight at school. A boy had been calling a dark-skinned girl names. Will told the boy to stop, and he was punched in the stomach. I asked him if he had cried, and he said yes. I told him that big boys don't cry. I remember him asking me then, what do big boys do when they're sad? I suppose I didn't answer his question. I told him that he would be a good man when he was grown up and be able to stand up for himself. He had done the right thing, I told him, even though it hurt him that time. Now I think about this, he didn't seem much happier. What should I have said? Will tripped over his toy van when he was going to bed. I remember carrying him. He was trying so hard not to cry. He was so small in my arms. I've never forgotten that feeling. It's most odd what sticks with you. A whole patchwork of memories making up our lives. I took him to bed to read him a story. He liked ghost stories, but I thought he was too young for them. He would get very scared after the light was out. Sharon kept on buying him more, though. I always had to check the room for ghosts before he would settle down. I made sure he could see me looking carefully. I remember that night because I promised him then that I would always be there for him, to protect him regardless of anything. He probably thought I meant about ghosts, but I meant it for everything. It's not the kind of promise you forget. I've been reading him Grimm's fairy tales. I didn't like all the updated nonsense they'd been putting into stories back then. That night was a strange story called The Ungrateful Son. I'll tell it to you, it's only short. Once upon a time, a man and his wife were eating a roast chicken for dinner. When the man saw his father, a very old man, walking along the road towards them, the man didn't want to share, and so he hid the chicken out of sight. His father came, bid them a good day, and went on his way. The man was happy with himself and told his wife to get the chicken and put it on the table again. But the chicken had transformed into a giant toad, which leapt onto the face of the man. The toad would never leave, and when his wife wanted to help, she was so afraid of it that she dared not go near. The man had to feed the toad every day from then on, or it would bite his face, and he never rested for the remainder of his life. That was a very strange story. Will was asleep before I finished it, which was probably a good thing. It left me in an odd mood. I wondered how long I would be able to keep him safe. The world is so unpredictable. I would do my best like all good grandmothers. I could still see him sleeping there now, like it was only yesterday. I never thought it would be easy, but I had raised James, so I thought I would be ready for anything from my grandson Will. The world changes so quickly, I remember the family visiting me when Will was a teenager. Did you ever hear the song Here in My Heart? That was playing when Robert first kissed me. Al Martino had a beautiful voice. They don't sing like that anymore. Such a shame. We've family over in New Zealand. I went to visit them after James had grown up. We still write letters to each other at Christmas, you know. It's important to stay in touch with your family, even when we're so spread out. I like to go down to Brighton, to the seaside, and I would buy a new glass animal every time I went there, collecting them. Everyone should have a hobby, I think. My husband Robert was a writer. Sadly, he died before Will really knew him. He could have gone far if he'd applied himself a bit more. We were all waiting back then for Diana to divorce Charles. It had been such a scandal after that television interview that she did. People seem to believe that all us old folk want to talk about is the weather, so I started the conversation.
I think it's sad. She was bullied into all of this from the beginning.
The conversation didn't go well from there. I got very frustrated with him. Sharon sat there, not saying anything, which was worse than her joining in, but I could imagine her American take on the whole thing. James didn't help. He has always been so obtuse in his views. I wish I hadn't even tried. They didn't want to hear my views. I said that I was going to make some tea. No one offered to help. I didn't really want tea. I don't think they wanted it either. But I needed to do something. I know it seems like a small thing, but maybe it was the first time that I felt apart from Will. James and Sharon were both adults, but Will... There wasn't any choice in my day, but it gave me a quiet life. That was good enough. Back then, society worked by all getting along. You kept your head down. It's easier to stand up from the crowd now, but... well, I don't think it's right. If you go against society, you always end up in trouble. I was scared for him. He had all these views about things, and it was dangerous. I was so scared that Will was going to go off half-cocked and make a mess of his life. I stood there, waiting for the tea to brew. And I cried for him. He was young, but he was old enough too. He was going to make mistakes, and I wouldn't be able to stop him. I knew something had been broken that day between Will and I. I took a deep breath and pulled myself together. It doesn't help anything to let others see you get upset. I live by myself. I always have done since Robert went. I had felt this was acceptable until then. Feeling distant from your family is the most awful thing. It's the strangest feeling of mourning. My generation has different values. Oh, goodness, I know that. But I very much believe that they are good. I wasn't prepared to accept that Will wasn't going to talk to me anymore. His views, I felt he was putting his future at risk. All these free ideas about people choosing their own way to live. He would understand later. But how much later? What damage might he do to his life before he saw that you need to fit in to get along? It's a lot of work making a house look welcoming, but it was good to be busy. I didn't know what to expect that Christmas. I just wanted us to all be close again. But I was nervous. I remember a Christmas after Will had gone to university, but we were all coming back together for the holiday. I kept in touch with a lot of friends. We didn't have email, of course, but even now they just aren't as good as a real letter. Will was bringing a girlfriend, Sarah. I wanted the place to look perfect. My family arrived just as the Christmas lunch was ready. It was perfect timing. James is like my husband Robert. Kind at heart, but I wish he would apply himself. I mentioned that Sharon took Will away for 3 years to America once, didn't I? Yes, I think I did. He was only 10. I missed so many important years. I hadn't seen Will since he left. I wanted him to understand I wanted the best for him. I always wanted that, no matter if he disagreed with me. Sarah was lovely, of course. She was a bit shy back then, I think. We talked about her university courses. She really had no reason to be nervous. Will was growing up to be such a fine man. He doted on Sarah.
Oh, thanks.
I felt so proud of Will. He was becoming the man I had hoped he would be. With Sarah, I hoped he would be on track to a normal life. But that was the last time I saw her. The next summer, I went to visit Will at university. It's only civil to arrive on time for your appointments, so I started the drive down to see him with plenty of time to spare. I arrived early and decided to have a look at the campus. It was my first time there and the buildings looked lovely. Young people were everywhere, full of life and excitement before the summer break. I hoped I might see Sarah among all the beautiful girls. Going to university wasn't normal in my day like it is now. I never had the chance to go and improve myself. I noticed Will from a distance. I've always thought he stood out in a crowd. At first, I couldn't see what he was doing. Then I saw that he was holding hands with a man. And then, right out in front of everyone, they kissed. He went and did that after everything I had tried to teach him. I knew that all those liberal views would get him in trouble. I left right away. What was I supposed to say to him then? Will hadn't seen me. I simply had no idea how I could be expected to act like everything would be okay for him. He was so young to be doing that kind of thing, with his whole life ahead. Suddenly, the university seemed ugly, obscene. All that sense of entitlement, but no appreciation. It was full of children, running around abusing the freedom that my generation worked hard to earn for them. After everything I had done for him, he was doing that, putting himself in danger. I felt so angry with him and with everyone there. That sort of thing. It all just feels wrong to me. Sorry, but that's just the way I feel about this. I barely saw Will for the next few years. I couldn't bring myself to talk to him. It was silly of me, I suppose. After university, he went travelling, seeing the world. I stayed at my house. I said that my husband Robert had died when Will was young, didn't I? It's sometimes hard not to live in the past when you have so much time to yourself. I had all these hopes for who Will would be when he was a grown man. I remember so clearly before he changed, when he was just a happy little boy. He probably never really understood how much I loved him when he was growing up. But life goes on. I was working in the garden. Things go wild if you leave them too long. Will would occasionally send me a postcard from somewhere foreign on his travels. He wasn't in travel journalism back then. Even though I was angry, I still worried about him. Of all the damn things, I twisted my ankle when I was going to answer it. I lay there feeling like a complete idiot. There was nothing I could do. I tried to move, but it hurt too much. I called out for help. I heard someone coming around the side of the house. Will had come to visit after coming back from travelling. I'd ignored him for so long. I never made the effort to reach out to him, but he never gave up on me.
It'll be all right.
He looked after me anyway. Inside the man he was, I could see for the first time the same kind boy I knew before. I don't claim that I'll understand some of his choices,
Let's get you inside.
but inside, he really always had been the man that I wanted him to be. Kind and strong. I'd missed that, blinded by only one part of him. He was still everything I could have hoped for. He was even kind to a fool like me. I'll never forget that.